There are many symbols located in the lore of The Legend of Zelda that are for some reason ignored over the years, that tell the tales of the mystifying legacy of the legendary people called the Hylians. Throughout the timelines of the games, the developers at Nintendo created all sorts of symbols in their games that somehow totally got ignored by either the fan base or even the developers themselves. But these symbols are in fact very important when it comes down to the lore and exploration of their created characters and races. In this video I want to explore some of the things I have found that could explain perhaps the origins or just more about, for example, the Hylian mythology or the Gerudo mythology. As I played throughout the games, I noticed that there was a lot of religious artifacts and symbolism regarding certain topics that are either just forgotten in the Zelda lore, or the developers simply abandoned it and left it out as it might have been not too much of an importance to them. Long ago, The Legend of Zelda had inspiration coming from religion or real-life mythology that gave the inspiration to the world building of the kingdom. Back in Zelda 1, Link used to carry a shield with him that had a giant cross on it, a reference to the cross of Jesus Christ. But many years down the line, this concept was abandoned and turned more to a bird motif, and sometimes the Triforce was surrounding it. This small reference should tell you that religion has always been a present of the series, and so we find a lot of interesting references to other religions or mythology. The ancient Greek Hylians, or the first ones that came before is how I like to call them, didn't always believe in the three goddesses as we know them, Veror, Nehru and Din. Forget about the timelines for a second and think of more of a new player that has never experienced a Zelda game before. But do mind that this adding in of the symbolism started all the way back in Zelda 1, but it was Skyward Sword that became more of the norm of a base to keep these symbols around, which is seen in Breath of the Wild, and it was kept ever since. These ancient Hylians carried the idea that their planet was surrounded by other stars and planets, and not the three goddesses that came much later into their pantheon of gods, once goddess Hylia appeared. Forget about the Zonai as well for now, as they aren't important at this time. Think about the start of Skyward Sword, not as the beginning of a timeline of the games or its story, but inspiration for what is to come later. Skyward Sword was heavily referencing Buddhism, and it was the start of the series that marked these symbols as very important to the architecture of the dungeons and other designs of this game and other games. But the symbols that popped up in Skyward Sword became the norm in future games like in Ocarina of Time 3D and Majora's Mask 3D, and it hasn't changed ever since. So to start, let's begin with the ancient symbol that is diamond shaped that we can find almost anywhere. So this diamond shaped symbol I call the Hylian symbol. It is the base of everything in this series. Some have small wings like things next to the left and right of the symbol. Sometimes it also shows like some type of leaf. We saw this one all the way back in Skyview Temple. The simple reason is that this temple or dungeon, whenever you prefer to call it, was the first mark of ancient Hylians that we visit in the game. You see, the Skyview Temple was once a worshipping place where they worshipped the sun. This symbol will be shown a billion times in this video, so prepare for that. Throughout the series, the sun symbol can be seen almost everywhere, and I'm not even joking. It is so in your face that you'll start to see it everywhere. The Skyview Temple was more like a giant observatory where the ancient looked up into the sky, praying and looking for answers. Even the giant room in the middle looks like a giant bulb of a seed, trying to grow into the beautiful golden light. And right outside of this temple, we can see the beginning of what eventually became the Forest Temple, as they share the same structure. After the imprisoning war, these ancient people mostly all died out, carrying with them the knowledge of the days of old, and Hylia only saved a few of these people when she appeared, leading that to the start of Skyloft. Even the ancient system seems to have this same symbol on the entrance outside, copy and pasted onto the walls and bridge there, hard for the player to see. Again, the ancient system is in fact around Lake Floria, just a bit outside of the woods, implying a connection. That is because they are. The ancient system was a giant water storage tank that kept it clean for the people there to drink, implying that they knew how to work with pretty advanced technology, which leads us to the Lanayru Desert. This desert, however, wasn't always a desert. We know this as the time shift stones show us that there was once a lush green environment which might have been the origins of the ancient Hylians before it collapsed. Here the Temple of Time was built, most likely being the first base of these people, and it was also less known, because of the knowledge that was lost in time. Girahim only found out, including Zelda and Impa, that there were more portals to travel into. That was because they were not built at first by the machines that came much later, as the machines were designed by the Thunder Dragon that arrived many years later after the imprisoning war, and not before it. The machines weren't always there working forever to mine stones. It was all done by hand at first in small factories. How do I know this? Well, let's look into the factories, shall we? The first thing we notice are the sun symbols again, including the same diamond-shaped symbol that will become the main symbol of the Hylians. Everyone thinks that it's the Triforce, but that is not the case. It is in fact this diamond-shaped figure. More about that later. Here we see something interesting that I call the compass, which we go over a few times in the video. This symbol is very important because it shows you the 4 cardinal directions of north, east, south and west. This is because in Buddhism there is something called the 4 heavenly kings. These kings are in fact protectors of Mount Meru, which is the center of the Buddhist cosmos, and their role is to protect the world of danger. This corresponds with everything else I've told you, like how the Buddha in the ancient cistern sits at Nirvana, watching over the lake looking into hell, which he does by staring into the lake where the story of the spider's thread happens. You can find this symbol again in almost every Zelda game many times that is very hard to dismiss as random figures that look cool only. There's a story to these things is what I'm trying to tell you. Another compass example I can show you is in the Majora's Mask 3DS. Even in the original, the compass figure is there, but it's hard to see. But in the 3DS version, the whole room is enlightened more, and now Majora finally shows her true colors. Link is in fact the moon deity, which I have always said since I played Majora's Mask so many years ago. And Majora's Mask is now the sun goddess, which I always believed in. A duality fighting each other till the very end of the last day, where the cycle repeats itself until fierce deity Link breaks the cycle. That people never saw this has always baffled me, to be honest. Everyone seems to ignore the Link is dead theory as nobody believes in it, yet we again notice a purgatory situation here, where Link is stuck in limbo, something that goes on forever, which is the whole baseline of what the Legend of Zelda is about. Reincarnation, another reference to the Buddha, and the Ouroboros that never stops, which we saw in the symbol of the 2 dragons of Tears of the Kingdom. In paranormal situations, it is claimed that ghosts or spirits are in fact stuck in limbo and cannot find their way back home. You can clearly tell that there is a pattern here when it comes down to the Zelda games. I am not claiming the Link is dead theory is real, by the way, but it is strange how people ignore it like that. The next interesting object or figures in Lanayru Desert is this one here. As you can see, there are balls or circles surrounding a star with 4 other stars surrounding it. It is almost shaped like some kind of planetary alignment, if you know what I mean. Now, this object itself is not super important, but it does become important when you start to see that there is another sun symbol right across the room here. It all connects to the universe. And then just a few rooms away, we got clouds with stars on the ceiling. It's not the clouds that are very amazing to me, but the stars are. Another indication of space. I remember the UFO concept art of Breath of the Wild, which I hope was part of the game. And if you do not believe in my theory that the ancients used to worship the sun here in the factories of Lanayru Desert even before the imprisoning war, then look at this beautiful sun shining and tell me I'm not right about this. Another and one of the most interesting symbols of the whole Zelda lore to me is what I call the flower, which is in my opinion, in fact, what started the Hylian motif and it fused together, which is seen here. In the 3DS version of Ocarina of Time, you can find a room within the treasure minimap shop where there is the compass symbol on the wallpaper. But look, there's the same flower-like symbol right underneath it. So in my opinion, the flower symbol is just another decoration symbol that stands for Hylian, and even Zelda wears this in Tears of the Kingdom on a rope seen here. Now, if you still aren't convinced, I have some more for you to see. as there is a wooden shield with the exact same pattern found in Tears of the Kingdom. When we go to the Spirit Temple of the 3DS version of Ocarina of Time, we can see the same compass symbol on the walls, and above the walls another crystal-like shape. You can clearly tell, if I put the Lanerio mining facility flower next to it, that they are identical or even the same thing. And again, the 3DS version of Ocarina of Time would travel to Ganon's castle to find that same symbol again. And this time, we find it above the walls, inside his castle, or above the entrance of the room. Why would such a symbol being shown time and time again if it doesn't mean anything at all except random architecture? Because it does have a hidden identity to it. Obviously the developers chose this because they might think it looks cool, but lore-wise it means that the castle is now corrupted into darkness, and so the figure is now also shaped in a corrupted way. It even looks like the two shapes that used to be leaves on the side are now eyes, with the crystal in the middle being the forehead of Ganondorf. The ancient Hylian cultures and connections are still found within the Zelda games, which is so interesting to me. In Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, these same symbols are back again, found everywhere. Now we can exclude the timelines from this video because I want to look at them in their own specific way. First, we need to look at all the space revelations that Breath of the Wild has shown to us. The entirety of the Shika shrines are built with the knowledge of the stars, as we can even find one shrine called Kioruk that states "Faithful Stars." And within this shrine there's also a slate that says, "Look at the stars for guidance. The constellations are the key." Now, why would the Shika be interested in any of this scientific approach of the stars if they already know that these same stars are created by the three goddesses that they worship within that specific timeline? Well, to answer that question, we know the Shika are very curious about science, but are more linear in their magic department than everybody else in Hyrule. But this same curiosity was once part of the very old traditions of the past, when the Hylians weren't united like they are today. In Breath of the Wild, the world is in an apocalyptic state, but the races are more unified than ever before, as even the king tried to work together with them to get rid of Calamity Ganon. If we have to believe the stories, the shrines are in fact thousands of years old, guarded by the Shika monks, all created in a time when space was something magical and not fully understood yet. It was only in Tears of the Kingdom that we learned more about the past, even though this is again another separate game. This time, however, the aliens called the Zonai came down from the heavens and tried to bring peace and prosperity to the world. The Shika shrines are now replaced by Zonai shrines, and yet there's still something weird to be solved here. This riddle is that within the sky there are still giant spheres with holes in them hanging in the air. Once inside the spheres, they show you two symbols again that we have spoken about before: the sun and the moon. And here we are again, back at square one. Why would the Zonai be interested into the planets or space if they knew what it was? The answer lies that once upon a time, ancient Hylians used to work together with the Zonai, trying to understand the world around them. The ones that came before, as I call them, weren't so advanced yet in technology, and so the Zonai tried to learn these early Hylians how the world was alive, filled with life force and magic. To teach these humans things, they created labyrinths for them to train in. They prospered in technology and upgraded their skills in fighting. The tribes that weren't united eventually united as one, as they were in war with each other for years, as that was all part of their barbaric nature. And because of this, a Lady of Light was chosen by the leader of the Zonai to become one and married each other, ending the feud between these two races and creating the Holy Hylian Zonai Alliance. It explains the reasoning of Hylian symbols appearing more frequently in the world, and as the kingdom was now born, so grew the old tribes into a giant civilization, and starting the existence of the kingdom of Hyrule. There are so many other symbols to uncover here too. For one, we here have the Twilight symbol. Do you see any resemblance to something? This symbol has a significant shape because it looks like an altered state of the Shika eye. Instead of one eye and the teardrop down below, it is all connected into one giant hieroglyph of some sort. The black lines under it seem to reflect the same flower-like patterns from the flower symbol, which the Hylian symbol carries with it, and below is a strange stick-like figure looking like a bug or caterpillar with lots of arms. However, I feel that this is Midna's transformed state once the Twilighter uses the ancient weapon called the Fused Shadow, which was a terrifying weapon of dark sorcery used by her ancestors. The bug symbol could also signify something totally surprising, which is a reference to the Dark World, as it looks like the same creature we can find as part of the dungeon called the Skull Woods. As for Zant, he clearly carries the Hylian symbol as well. On his armor he has the red fire crystal hanging there with the same flower-like leaves spiraling next to it. You might recognize it because I've spoken about it in my magic armor video, which you can see here. All three of the armors carry the Hylian symbol with them, with the exception that Zant has it on his chest, which came from his Gerudo ancestry. And even the Gerudo are not alone in their own symbolism. Unlike the Hylians, they have not forgotten their own ancient past. In almost every game since the reveal of their tribe, the Gerudo has shown an unlimited amount in the worshipping of the sun. It is very possible that the Gerudo share the exact same origin with the ancient Hylians, although I do have the feeling that they went their own separate evolution after spending years of separation. For starters, they do not possess the ability to listen to the goddesses. Even though this part has been retconned in Breath of the Wild as they now suddenly can, this could have been their punishment of choosing the darker side of magic. Long before even Ganondorf was born, the Gerudo had special influence between the Hylians and the Zonai. They were most likely the only causing most of the wars within the lands of ancient Hyrule, as they were fueled by jealousy and envy. This again started all in Skyward Sword. In that game, there is no Gerudo to be found. There are to me two reasons why that is. The first one is that they all perished during the imprisoning war. They lived at the heart of the mountain of Eldin. Before the war began, Eldin the dragon lived side by side by the ancient people living in the fire sanctuary. His dialogue suggests that the mountain wasn't always such a terrible place to live in. He tells of a time when those below and above ground used to live together in harmony by the blessing of the great mountain. But when the war began, these people got slaughtered by the demon army, and only one of their children survived the ordeal, Groose. The other option is that they never existed, but became part of Groose's bloodline. Din's Fire is the one located in the Fire Sanctuary, which is also the same location where the Din's Fire magic spell is found in Ocarina of Time. It's not a coincidence that Groose was the rival of Link until he changed his heart, because that's the number one trait of the Gerudo since ancient times, jealousy. Gerudo are thieves, always stealing power from the ones they dislike for their own selfish gain. Even Nabooru chose the side of Ganondorf once, until she noticed that he wasn't the leader she thought he was. It took the Gerudo thousands of years to realize that their path of evil wasn't the right one to follow. So how can I say that they came from the mountain? In the mountain there is an enemy called the Magnamos. When we check out the Gerudo in Breath of the Wild, they oddly seem to wear a particular symbol on their clothing that seems to match the one seen on the monster, and they do not wear the Hylian symbol like we see everywhere else. The next interesting bit is the lion statue in Ocarina of Time and in the 3D version. This statue is somehow only found in the Gerudo training ground. In Skyward Sword within the Earth Temple, we can find a multitude of lion statues. The sun symbol is also extremely prevalent in both dungeons. Next we have the jewelry that the Gerudo like to use, which is seen hanging pretty much everywhere in these two dungeons. The jewelry is important to them and is something they share in their cosmetic designs. The reason is because these jewelry carry magical powers in them. I spoke about this idea in my magic armor video, when I went over the colors of the rupees and what they represented. Kuma and Kotake are a big example of this, as they share ice and fire magic respectively with a rupee and sapphire. Ganondorf carries a jewel in his forehead and sometimes even on his armor. The big jewel on his forehead is simply hiding the scar that carried over from his previous reincarnation. It tells a story of a long-forgotten past of a civilization that once protected the goddesses and even fought alongside them, until the goddesses betrayed the Gerudo people entirely in their point of view, after they got stuck living in the desert, while existing with a bad reputation as dark sorcerers, which eventually merged with the powers of demons and caused the start of the Gerudo tribe that eventually led to the evil Demon King many years later. A lot of demonic worshipping took place inside the volcano, as we can see tons of mythological deities hanging around in the architecture of the dungeon, which implies that the Gerudo already went a strong direction to independence. This was the first part of their mythology, but as the growing hatred became much more of a revelation to their tribe, suddenly their powers began to grow, and they abandoned the golden goddesses. They started to understand what magic was, and how to abuse this magic for their own selfish desires, and only a few sorcerers were able to use these powers for their own. Kuma and Kotake are the two surrogate mothers of Ganondorf, and once in 100 years a male sorcerer is born to take over the leadership of their tribe. However, this leader is also supposedly evil, and happens to be demonic. This is because their powers fuse together in a ritual to summon a creature or demon, if you will, from the darkness they worship, as they use their life force to create a dark entity. This dark entity's name is Ganon. By combining a Gerudo with this demonic entity, they create a new humanoid being called Ganondorf Dragmire. It is a simple tradition that developed and evolved over the years and is a big part of their culture. We even see them in Tears of the Kingdom for a few moments, and it shows that their tradition goes back centuries. And ever since their existence, Ganon plagued the world with his dark trident, trying to take over the world. It explains to me at least why this tradition kept occurring in the Zelda games, and it does answer a question that a lot of people have asked over the years. It is the combination of worshipment and jealousy that caused the Gerudo to walk down this path, and how they went from the mountain to the desert after traveling for years with resentment, while all the others grew with love and protection. Their homeland, the Gerudo Desert, is still guarding the old traditions from the past, and is a much more dangerous place compared to Hyrule, which fits such a strong tribe, unlike the Hylian tribe that sticks around worshipping those ones that abandoned them. The giant snake statues that are seen scattered around their architecture are part of the beings called Nagas, which they worshipped for a long time together with their female counterparts. These creatures came from the religion of Hinduism as inspiration from real life, and are mostly evil as well. Even the cobra statues have a bindi or bindy red dot on their foreheads. Combine this with the magical rubies situated on their chest armor to increase their magic, the lotus positions that these statues sit in to develop more spiritual energy and balance, and a mixture of Egyptian themes, and you got yourself a mystic entity that protects the Gerudo tribe. In the other games like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, however, these statues are mostly gone and the symbolism are mostly removed, and now only small fractures of sword-holding statues remain. But the sun deity has never left them at all, as they have chosen the side of holiness and good this time around, which was once upon a time a deity worshipped for its heavenly rays. Now the Gerudo and Breath of the Wild are finally aligned well again, as they remember their dark and twisted past, and not against the Hylians at all like they used to. Ganondorf is now just a fragment of what once was told to them in the legends, and even Noboru is now celebrated as a worshipped figure instead of their previous demon king. And not even Kuma and Kotake have returned once again to reincarnate their evil king as part of their dark rituals, to take over those pesky Hylians and their golden goddesses that chose the Hylians instead of their tribe. All of these objects and symbolism could indicate a bigger picture of the Legend of Zelda franchise and its world building. Sometimes things can just be randomly added in the textures, which I understand as the developers might not think at all that deep into it like I do. But all these coincidences of locations and characters and backgrounds aren't simply coincidences to me, at least. They are parts of a bigger story that I love to unfold in front of you all. And I would like to ask the Zelda community and my lovely viewers out there to share my ideology around, to look for more clues within the mythology so we can understand this franchise better. Ask other YouTubers or viewers what you think of this video or my opinions, but also let them do the research themselves so we can start to understand the ideas behind these chosen symbols and stories behind the Legend of Zelda better. That is all I'm asking, because everyone has their own opinions, and that is what I love about this franchise, that we can theorize about it, you know? That we all think differently about it is the fun of all of this, in my opinion. So, thank you all for watching this video. I hope you learned something more. What do you think about all the symbols I've shown you? What do you think about everything else I've said? And share this with everybody else. Like and subscribe if you haven't yet. And I'll see you guys all in the next video. Bye-bye.